The studio lights burned bright, but the air felt ice cold. Mary Trump's show, Truth Table, was live, and tonight's topic was anything but ordinary. On the screen behind them, clips from Trump's chaotic Canada press conference were playing. His voice echoed through the studio, "They're lying about me again." Denzel Washington sat quietly in the guest chair. His face didn't show anger, it showed exhaustion, the kind that comes from carrying the weight of truth and justice ignored for too long. Mary paused the video and turned toward him. "Do you think this was just a gaffe?" she asked. Denzel shook his head slowly, eyes locked on the camera. "No," he said, his voice steady. "This isn't a gaffe. This is the mask of the system slipping off. Lying to the public has become second nature." The studio fell silent. Even the sound engineer held his breath. Denzel leaned forward. "People aren't buying it anymore. That press conference in Canada wasn't just one man's failure, it was the collapse of an entire era." Mary's expression grew serious. "So what should the people do?" she asked. Denzel pulled the microphone closer, his tone calm but razor-sharp. "You can't silence the truth. No matter how loud they shout, as long as the cameras are rolling, the truth stays live." On the screen, Trump's image froze mid-sentence, a symbol of a crumbling facade in real time. The studio lights burned brighter now, casting long shadows across the Truth Table stage. Mary Trump leaned forward, her pen tapping nervously on the desk. Denzel didn't flinch. His presence filled the room, calm, grounded, yet charged with the kind of energy that comes right before a storm. "You talk about the system," Mary said, "but this system made him. It gave him a microphone, and now it protects him." Denzel's jaw tightened. "Yeah, it made him, but it also made us blind. Every lie sold as patriotism, every scandal wrapped in a flag. You think this is politics? No. This is theater. And the audience is finally waking up." The control room erupted in static chatter. Ratings were spiking, the producers could feel it. Mary tried to regain control, but Denzel wasn't slowing down. "People are tired," he said. "They're working two jobs, paying for promises that never come true, while the powerful rewrite truth on live TV. And you know what? They call it leadership." Mary hesitated. "You're saying Trump is a symptom?" Denzel nodded. "Exactly. He's not the disease. He's the result of a country that stopped asking questions. But tonight," he paused, turning to the camera, his voice steady, "tonight, people are asking again. And the answers? They won't come from speeches. They'll come from truth. Unfiltered, uncomfortable, but necessary." The red "Live" sign blinked above them, and the nation leaned closer to the screen. Mary adjusted her papers, trying to maintain composure. The tension was electric. The kind that made audiences stop scrolling, stop breathing. "So, what's the truth, Denzel?" she asked, her voice barely steady. "If not politics, if not media, then what's left?" Denzel leaned in, eyes unwavering. "What's left," he said, "is accountability. Real, human accountability. The kind that doesn't hide behind a title or a slogan." His tone sharpened. "Trump stands there and says he's being attacked. But who's really under attack? The people who believed him. The ones who voted for change and got a circus instead." Mary opened her mouth to respond, but Denzel raised a hand. "You see, Mary, he built an empire on outrage. Every tweet, every speech, fuel for the fire. But fires burn out. And when the smoke clears, what's left? Lies, fear, and silence." The studio audience was dead quiet. Even the producers behind the glass didn't dare move. Denzel continued, his voice lower now, deliberate. "You can't govern through chaos forever. Eventually, the truth walks in, no entourage, no cameras, just truth. And when it does, the empire of deception crumbles." Mary looked at him, unsure whether to challenge or agree. "Are you saying this is his reckoning?" she asked. Denzel's lips curled into the faintest smile. "No," he said, shaking his head slowly. "This isn't his reckoning, Mary. This is ours. Because for too long, we watched the show, and forgot it was our country being sold for ratings. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was heavy, real. A truth finally spoken aloud. Mary sat back in her chair, the tension etched across her face. You really think people will care, Denzel? She asked quietly. After everything, after every scandal, every headline, do you think truth even matters anymore? Denzel's eyes narrowed, the studio lights glinting off his bald head like a halo of grit and defiance. That's what they want you to believe, he said. That truth is old news. That decency's outdated. But no, people care. They've just been buried under so much noise they can't hear themselves think anymore. Mary leaned forward, intrigued despite herself. So, you're saying the people still have power? Power's not gone, Denzel said, his voice rising. It's just misplaced. We hand it over every time we trade facts for entertainment. Every time we treat corruption like a reality show. He looked directly into the camera. You know who profits from confusion? The ones who wrote the script. Mary blinked, realizing he wasn't just talking about Trump anymore, he was talking about the entire system. So who rewrites it? She asked. Denzel smiled faintly. We do. One truth at a time. You can censor voices, twist stories, edit footage, but you can't fake reality forever. Eventually, it leaks out, through the cracks, through people who refuse to shut up. There was a pause, deep, electric. Then Denzel's final line hit like a hammer. History doesn't belong to the loudest voice. It belongs to the one who tells the truth when it's hardest to speak. The control room went silent. The broadcast timer blinked red. Across America, living rooms fell still, millions realizing they weren't watching an interview anymore. They were witnessing a reckoning. The next moment felt almost cinematic, the type of silence that hums with power. Mary Trump sat frozen, her pen motionless above her notes. Denzel's words still hung in the air like the echo of a verdict. She tried to regain the rhythm, clearing her throat. So, what happens next? She asked softly. What do you expect, Denzel? Revolution? He leaned back in his chair, his voice lower now, deliberate, cutting. No, Mary, not a revolution. A revelation. Mary frowned. What's the difference? Denzel's gaze locked on hers, calm but unyielding. A revolution changes faces. A revelation changes minds. That's what they fear. Not riots, realization. The studio lights flickered slightly, reflecting the tremor in the air. Denzel continued, for decades, this country's been addicted to illusion. It's not about red or blue. It's about distraction. Every scandal, every headline, a sleight of hand while the same hands sign the checks. Mary whispered, so you're saying Trump isn't the first? Denzel's jaw tightened. He's not the first, and he won't be the last. But he's the loudest, and that noise woke people up. Sometimes, it takes chaos to see clearly. The audience was silent. You could almost hear the hum of the cameras, the collective breath of millions watching from home. Denzel turned to the lens, eyes sharp, voice steady. If this country ever falls, it won't be from foreign enemies. It'll be from forgetting who we are. The feed held on his face for a heartbeat too long. Then, for the first time all night, Mary didn't respond. She just sat there, realizing she was no longer the host. Denzel was. Mary finally broke the silence, her voice trembling just enough to betray the weight of the moment. You talk about truth like it's a weapon, she said. But look around, Denzel, everyone's using it to destroy each other. Denzel chuckled, low and sharp. That's not truth, Mary. That's narrative warfare. Real truth doesn't destroy, it exposes. It burns through lies like sunlight through fog. He leaned forward, his tone like a sermon wrapped in steel. See, what Trump built wasn't leadership, it was theater. And everyone bought a ticket. Every headline, every outrage, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. But nobody ever asked, who's writing the script? Mary hesitated. You think it's all a show? It is a show, Denzel said. But the tragedy is, the audience forgot they were part of it. They started cheering for the actors instead of demanding the truth. His hand hit the table with quiet authority. That's how empires of deception are born. The sound engineer's hands hovered over the fader, unsure if they should cut to commercial. But the director, transfixed, shook his head. Keep rolling. Denzel's eyes didn't blink. America keeps forgiving the powerful for crimes it would crucify the powerless for. And Trump? He didn't invent that double standard, he just put it on primetime TV. Mary exhaled. You make it sound hopeless. He smiled faintly. Hopeless? No. Painful, yes. But pain wakes you up. This, he gestured around the studio, at the cameras, the audience, the nation watching, this is what waking up looks like. It's loud. It's messy. It's overdue. For a second, the camera caught something rare, vulnerability behind his fire. Then he straightened, his voice cutting clean again. The truth doesn't need applause. It just needs to be heard. The world, watching live, heard every word. Mary leaned back, her expression shifting from defiance to disbelief. You really think people want to hear that? She asked. That the system's broken, that their leaders are actors, that they've been lied to for decades? Denzel's answer came fast, almost like he'd been waiting his whole life to say it. They already know, Mary. They just don't want to face it. The truth isn't new, it's just uncomfortable. He paused, then lowered his voice. You know what's funny? When people hear the truth, they don't argue with it. They flinch. Because deep down, it hit something they buried. Mary shifted in her seat, crossing her arms. So you're saying everyone's complicit? Denzel nodded. In a way, yeah. The corruption thrives because people trade honesty for comfort. It's easier to pretend your leaders are heroes than to admit they're human, or worse, hypocrites. The camera zoomed in slightly as he continued, voice steady and deliberate. Trump's empire isn't built on money or power. It's built on permission, the permission people gave him to say what they were too afraid to say themselves. Mary exhaled sharply. You're not wrong, she admitted, her tone quieter now. But if everyone's responsible, who do we hold accountable? Denzel leaned forward, eyes like thunderclouds. All of us. Accountability doesn't start with the powerful, it starts with the mirror. That's what America forgot. There was a hum from the crowd, a sound between agreement and unease. Then Denzel pointed toward the lens, voice rising once more. If you want truth, you can't wait for permission. You fight for it. You bleed for it. And you never let the people selling lies tell you what freedom means. The studio erupted. Not in applause, but in raw, stunned silence. Mary swallowed hard, visibly shaken now. The studio's temperature seemed to rise as the silence pressed in. Denzel, she said softly, you talk like someone who's lost faith in everything. He gave a dry laugh. Faith? No. I haven't lost faith, Mary. I've just stopped worshipping false idols. He looked directly into the camera. This country was never meant to be built around one man. It was meant to be built around one idea, accountability. Mary hesitated. And what about redemption? Don't people deserve a second chance? Denzel's expression softened, but only slightly. Redemption isn't denial. It's confession. And you can't confess to something you're still trying to justify. The audience murmured, not the polite chatter of a studio crowd, but the raw sound of people thinking, processing. Denzel turned his attention back to Mary. Trump's followers call him a fighter, he said. But the truth is, he fights for himself. That's not courage, that's ego dressed up as patriotism. And too many people confuse the two. Mary leaned forward, finding her footing again. But isn't that the same for everyone in power? He nodded. Exactly. That's the problem. We've turned leadership into performance. They don't need to serve, they just need to trend. Politics became reality TV, and the truth became the blooper reel. Mary's lips parted, but Denzel wasn't finished. I'm not here to cancel anyone. I'm here to remind people, integrity isn't entertainment. Freedom isn't a slogan. And no leader, not Trump, not anyone, is bigger than the people they claim to serve. For the first time that night, Mary didn't argue. She looked down at her notes, then back at him. You really think America's ready to hear this? She asked. Denzel leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried across the world. They already did. The camera stayed locked on Denzel's face. The crew didn't dare cut away. You could almost hear hearts pounding, in the studio, in living rooms across America. Mary took a slow breath, gathering herself. You make it sound like the country's past saving, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Denzel smiled, not a warm smile, but the kind born from pain that's been carried too long. No, he said quietly. It's not past saving. It's past pretending. He straightened in his chair, his tone gaining strength. You can't fix what you won't face, and this nation has been running from its reflection for too long. We hide corruption behind party colors, greed behind patriotism, and fear behind faith. The audience held still, hanging on every word. Mary tried to interject, but Denzel kept going. People think speaking truth makes you angry, divisive. But you know what really divides us? The lies we protect. The silence we defend because it's convenient. He turned to the crowd. How many of you lost jobs, lost homes, lost loved ones, while politicians made speeches about your resilience? They profit off your struggle, then sell you hope like it's a subscription service. A murmur rippled through the audience. Cameras panned across faces, stunned, emotional, conflicted. Mary looked at him, eyes wide. You really think Trump symbolizes all that? Denzel nodded slowly. He's not the disease, Mary. He's the symptom. The product of a country that rewards spectacle over sincerity. But I'll give him credit, he didn't hide what he was. The people did. They made excuses until the truth didn't fit their version of America anymore. He leaned forward, voice low but sharp. If truth makes you uncomfortable, good. That means it's working. And once again, no applause. Just silence that meant something. The lights dimmed slightly, giving the room a cinematic stillness. Mary sat frozen, unsure if she should wrap up the segment or let the moment breathe. Denzel's gaze stayed steady on the camera, like he wasn't speaking to an audience anymore, but to the conscience of a nation. You see, he said softly, every empire built on lies eventually falls. Some crumble in war, others in silence. But all of them fall, not because of their enemies, but because truth finds a way to break through. Mary's voice cracked as she asked, so what now? What's left after all that? Denzel tilted his head, his tone calm yet commanding. What's left is the hard part, rebuilding. Without blind loyalty. Without fake heroes. Just people, real people, deciding they've had enough of being spectators in their own democracy. The audience sat in awe. Even the cameras seemed hesitant to blink. Denzel continued, voice deepening. You want to save America? Start with honesty. Not the kind that makes you look good, but the kind that costs you something. The kind that makes you lose friends, followers, maybe even faith, but keeps your soul intact. Mary's composure began to crack, her hands trembled slightly as she lowered her mic. Denzel's tone softened, almost fatherly now. You asked me earlier if I'd lost faith, he said. The truth is, I've never had more. Because faith isn't believing everything will be okay. It's fighting for it, even when it's not. He leaned back, eyes unwavering. So yeah, America's broken. But broken things can heal, if we stop pretending they're fine. The cameras pulled back slowly, Denzel in the center of the frame, the crowd still, Mary speechless. And just before the fade to black, his final words cut through the silence like thunder. The truth doesn't need permission. It just needs courage. Denzel turned toward the camera one last time. His voice was calm, not angry, but certain. You can't outrun truth forever, he said. It's patient. It watches you hide, it lets you lie, and then it shows up when the world's watching. So if you're leading this country, or even just living in it, ask yourself, when the truth knocks, are you ready to open the door? The studio fell silent. No music. No applause. Just that heavy, undeniable stillness that follows when something real has been said. Then, with a faint smile, Denzel added. America doesn't need perfect people. It needs honest ones. The lights dimmed. The screen faded to black.